to come participate in this discussion today?
So I'm part of the rhetorical reading group here, and I thought the social media was very interesting. I blog at an experimental section now where I have my students write a blog, and it makes them very excited to write when they have an audience.
Yeah, great. Other ideas? Yeah.
I've been researching social media in the composition classroom, and I've written a couple papers on it, so I'm just interested in hearing different perspectives on it.
Cool, great. Why else are you here?
I'm actually hoping to do my thesis on rhetoric and new media, and so this was directly in line with that.
Interesting. Interesting. Some interesting research, actually, that I've read online. There'll be some good fodder for you.
Okay, good.
Anybody else? Why else are you here? Everyone else is here for food.
And she made us.
Well, that's right. My teacher made me come. That's a standard answer. No, I'm glad to come and talk about this. I think social media is actually a fascinating topic. I hope we have a discussion, so I hope you're here to participate, because I don't plan on talking the whole time. But I'm interested in why you're interested in social media, because anyway. It's a fun topic. Let's first talk about what do we mean. What is social media? Let's define it, because there's as many definitions of social media as there are probably of rhetoric.
As far as I can tell, it's one where the audience can have a significant impact on what is being said.
Yes.
For me, that's the main difference between that and, for example, television. You can talk about television, but it won't do anything.
Yeah.
But in social media, you react, and your reaction becomes a part of the message.
Excellent. So I don't know, you guys. I don't know if you were ever Star Trek Voyager fans. There's an episode in Star Trek Voyager where they go back in time to 1996 or something, and they're watching some of the television broadcasts, and one of the actors says, "Well, I just can't imagine." Just watching, I can't imagine not being part of it, because they're used to this idea of a holodeck where they can go and be part of their entertainment, and that's kind of what we're talking about here, is being part of the discussion, contributing, in, like you said, in some significant way to the discourse that's occurring. And so, how is it a rhetorical tool then? Let's talk about it for businesses. How does social media become a rhetorical tool?
I worked for BYU Magazine, and we're trying to push our Facebook page a lot, and hoping to get just our readers involved in our content in a different way than you would with just a magazine. And so we were all still trying to figure out like why in the end we're doing that, but the same reason why you communicate, I think, is what it comes down to. But.
Well, that is the interesting question to me. Why? Why are we trying to? What's the point of involving people in the discussion? Thoughts about that? Why involve people in a discussion from a business perspective? Yeah.
One thing, if you make them a part of the conversation, you do make them part of the community, and so because of that, they'll have more of an affiliation towards you, or more of a hopefully positive impression of you, your products, your company, stuff like that. It's also opens a new venue where you can present a product in a way that it will be more likely to actually have an effect than just advertising that just goes in one ear out the ear, sometimes out the other.
Right. Okay. Excellent. Another idea. Someone else. Did you raise your hand?
I was going to say that they become part of. They can give feedback on your products, and then you can gear your products to them.
Yeah. Now the interesting component there is, do you really want the feedback? Right. It's amazing, the interaction that I've had with companies online. I don't know, maybe 5 years ago, posted on my blog about some bizarre reading I got on my weather.com little widget on my computer, and it said that there was a 110% chance of rain or something. and I took a screen capture of it, and I posted it on my blog. About I don't know, 2 or 3 days later, I got an email from one of the vice presidents of weather.com saying, "Hey, thanks for talking about our product online. Can we send you some free stuff?" Okay, so we got like 2 T-shirts and 2 hats, and I mean, just kind of random. But that was a company that understood that the conversation that's happening, if you're not a part of it, then you don't control the direction that it heads. You can't reinforce and make a negative experience into a positive one because you're not participating in the conversation. And the type of rhetoric that you use from a company perspective really is important in terms of how you relate to your customers and how they will perceive your company going forward. Because when someone says something negative about your product, whether it's, you got 110% screenshot on the screenshot, or something positive, you have really 2 ways you can react. You can react in a way that's positive and builds the conversation toward what's great about your product, or you can respond kind of defensively and say, oh, give us a break, or, it's just a free tool, what do you expect? Right? And if you do that in the right way, you can build a positive relationship with the customer who then goes and blogs and says, wow, I got a free T-shirt and a hat from weather.com, isn't that cool? And the people who read that are saying, oh, wow, that's a company that cares about their customer. And doing that cost them very little. But what did it gain them in terms of potential outlook or how people see them? Because even going forward, people who do a web search on weather.com, the tool on Google, may find that entry, may find what happened and see that that was a positive thing. It doesn't have to be just for the readers today, but it becomes part of the history of the social conversation that's happened. So how is it a rhetorical tool for individuals? How can you use social media as a rhetorical tool? Please.
Well, we're talking about rhetoric as just as far as persuasiveness. The biggest thing that's coming to my head right now is Netflix. They maxed out on their amount of comments. They maxed out on their amount of feedback that they can get because people are so upset about their decision. And kind of like you said, I don't know if Netflix necessarily wanted that, but they're the one who gave the option of people to give their feedback. So if people know that that's available, then why not use it?
Yeah, it's interesting. Because in some cases you get companies that try and control the message to the point where they don't allow comments on their blog. It's not a blog if you don't allow comments. I mean, that's part of the definition of blog is that you allow some sort of social interaction. If it's just content you posted on your page, it's just a web page, right? And so for it to be a blog and to pretend like you're involved in the social media arena, you really have to have some sort of that conversation going. But it puts you open. It opens you up for some kind of risk, right? And as Netflix has seen over the last about month or so. I think this is an interesting chart I found online where what's presented to the customer or to the people is really only a small part of the whole social media package. And if you're not doing the monitoring and the measurement, if you don't have objectives and understand what the business needs are, that all drives the direction that what you do in the social media arena. It's not just about putting content out there. People don't really care if it's just content. But if it's part of some strategy and has some sort of has guidelines and process and policy and monitoring behind it, then you can actually use it as a tool. These companies that have, they pay a lot of money these days to monitor what people are saying about them. I worked for a company for a while that did natural language processing, text analytics, where they could take unstructured text, so blog posts and Twitter posts and forum posts, and parse it and identify customer sentiment and identify meaning. And when the iPhone came out, Apple contracted with that company to provide some sort of, to get a picture of what people were saying about their product. So they were searching blogs and posts from all over the internet and bringing in actionable information to say this is what people like, this is what people don't like. And then they were able to go back and engage and fix in some areas, respond to in the right places to help overcome some of that negative sentiment that existed in some area. JetBlue used the same software, I don't know, a couple of years ago. I don't remember that big snafu in New York where they had all these people that got stuck on the tarmac for several hours. And within 3 or 4 days, JetBlue came out with this customer bill of rights. And that was directly in response to the feedback they had seen using this tool. So they understood what people were saying, they read the blog posts, they read the Twitter comments, and were able to take action immediately to respond to that in a way that really, I think, helped improve their image over what was started out to be a fairly non-JetBlue friendly discussion. And then for job hunters, I think I will let you know that I've had 3 jobs since I graduated from 3 official full-time jobs since I graduated from BYU. The second 2 of those came because of social media. My second job out of college, I was working as a technical writer. I was enjoying my job. I liked what I was doing. I got a phone call at work one day from someone who said, I saw your profile on LinkedIn. I see that you live in the Salt Lake area. I'm looking for a technical writer. Are you interested, or do you know someone who might be interested in a different position? And I said, well, I'm not really interested. I like where I'm at, but I'll talk to you to see if I know someone, or no reason to shut the door until you know that you really want to close it. And it turned out to be a great opportunity, and I left the company I was working for to go work for this new company. And then when I came to the church, I was involved in the technical communication arena, was talking to people online, and there was a blogger named Tom Johnson who runs a blog called I'dRatherBeWriting.com. He was living in Florida but was moving to Utah, and we had a conversation about coming and living in Utah, and then he interviewed me for a podcast he did on a help authoring tool. And then about 6 months or 8 months later, he emailed me and said, hey, we have a job opening at the church. Are you interested? And I said, well, I don't know, not really. He said, well, you ought to apply for it at least and see what the options are. So I applied for it, and I ended up taking that job, and so I am where I am today. And both of those I can directly tie to being involved in the social arena. So I guess it becomes a rhetorical tool because you control your image. And people are interested in you because of the image that you've put out there online. Every person I've interviewed for a job in the technical communication area, I've gone back and I've done a Google search, done a Facebook search, and I've asked them about, in the most recent one, I interviewed a writer, and she had done some writing for, I can't remember what the organization was, but it was some special interest. I don't know if it was, it had something to do with medieval something or other. And I asked her about it in the interview, and she said, how did you know about that? I said, well, I read about it online. You wrote a paper about, or you wrote a blog article or something. I can't remember the details specifically. But I'm looking at that information. And the information you're posting today is information that's going to build your online profile so that when people look for you when you're going for a job, they'll see that history of how you interacted. So I find myself being somewhat active in the various online forums. I always use my real name because that helps build my profile. People know who I am. They see this. They see the consistency. And in a search, if you search for my name, you'll see that I actually, the first 3 pages of Google hits, I'm probably on. I probably have the top hits with the exception of maybe 3 or 4 names. So I'm using the online community as a tool for my profession. So I think that's an interesting things to think about as you're kind of on the end where you're beginning to create that profile. There was an article in The Atlantic in July 2008 called "Is Google Making Us Stupid?" And the main point is that we don't consume information the way that our parents did. And in many cases, the way our parents still do. Nicholas Carr said, once I was a scuba diver in the sea of words. Now I zip along the surface like a guy on a jet ski. And that is pretty accurate, I think. When we go looking for content, we get a list of Google hits, we click, no, that's not it, click, no, that's not it, click, no, that's not it, click. Oh, that's kind of interesting. Oh, look, there's another button. Let's click over there. And we flow away from where we were originally even looking. And we become this jet ski driver across the surface, never really delving into the full article, never really understanding the full point maybe of the person who wrote the original article. And I think this is an interesting statistic. Americans spend 52 billion minutes a month on Facebook. This was a recent, I read this actually today. It was a Nielsen ratings. Do you realize that's 36 million hours a month? 98,000 years a month Americans spend on Facebook.
That's disgusting.
How much is that per American?
That's a good question. There are approximately 300 million Americans. That includes children, and I have 3 kids, 4 and under, and none of them spend any time on Facebook, so you can subtract 3. But that's a lot of time that people are spending online. People spend more time on Facebook in America than any other website. And I imagine a lot of you spend time on Facebook. I spend time on Facebook. Hopefully, I don't know how much I contribute to that, but what you're putting on Facebook is becoming part of who you are. And that's information you need to think about controlling. So there was a guy who responded to that Google is making us stupid, and he said, "Our reading on the web is like listening to a bunch of people talking. It's hybrid orality. We find ourselves once again in the naturally gregarious humans we once were. We find ourselves creating knowledge continually and rapidly as our social contacts on the web expand. We have rediscovered new ways to enjoy learning in a social setting." So the original author of Is Google Making a Stupid article kind of comes across as this negative. It is a bad thing that we're so fractured in how we respond to information, how we obtain information. Trent Baston responds saying, it's not necessarily a bad thing. We are engaging in a worldwide conversation in ways we never were able to engage in before. We're talking with people of different cultures, different income levels, totally different people than we were interacting with 20 years ago, in a way that actually we can learn from. We become better citizens worldwide as we learn to respect the cultures and the ideas of people that we simply weren't exposed to 20 years ago. So there are pros and there are cons. So how do you use rhetoric in the social media, in the social world online, to your advantage? And I guess I'll open that up. Question for your thoughts. How can you use it to your advantage then?
Well, I've started making a professional blog on things that I'm researching right now. And the interesting thing is that I do find through that I get into contact with people I wouldn't get in contact with otherwise.
Yeah.
I have people that read it that would never know about me otherwise. Like one of the things posted recently came into this kind of internet post or internet newspaper anyway, where they gather the best things they found in different issues and put that together and so on. And because of that, I also got contacts that are working on some of the same things that I'm working with. So that's one advantage of that.
Yeah, absolutely. Finding people who are interested in what you're interested in and working together. That's a definite way you can use it to your advantage. What thoughts? Please.
I really like what you suggested about building kind of your image on Facebook and things like that, and how it's starting to be a way that you can professionalize yourself. I use it in my classroom, and a lot of times some students are really enthusiastic about it. They think it sounds cool to do some of their homework on Facebook, but a lot of them are like, no, I want to keep my school self separate from my my real self. And I think that it's actually interesting. I think it might be a good thing to start kind of melding those two together, because I think that's kind of maybe the way we're going, and your professional self and your self when you're with your friends should start to become kind of one person, one image that you're projecting.
Yeah, I think that's true. On Facebook, it's interesting. You think, and I think this is probably a low for most of you, but I think if you had 100 friends on Facebook, and they each have 100 friends, a lot of times we share things with friends and friends of friends, right? If you have 100 friends and they each have 100 friends, we're talking about 10,000 people who have potentially your reach, of people who can see what you're posting. Now, if you have 300 friends, and all of your friends have 300 friends, all of a sudden we're talking about 90,000 people, potentially, that can see the information you're posting on Facebook.
So that should be a cautionary tale.
That should be a cautionary tale. You think, if you can post things, you think, well, no one in my professional world will ever really see this. They'll search for my name. I'm not really, I don't know anybody that they know. Well, maybe you do, particularly if you're looking for a job in this area. I think people are actually surprised when they find out how broad the reach is of friends of friends. Something you probably should be aware of as you choose what you post. And I'm not saying that you need to only be professional, because I think that melding of professional and personal is actually very interesting. It makes you sort of a well-rounded, a whole person. I really enjoy reading about some of the personal things that my business contacts talk about. It's interesting. I meet them then at a conference once a year or twice a year when I go to conferences, and I feel like I know something about them. I can ask about their kids or ask about their hobbies, and we have a connection on a social level, so we enjoy being together, and that we maintain that connection all year round. In particular, there's one woman who lives in Australia who is a tool expert on a tool that we're now using for technical communication at the church. And I read about her and her family and the flood they had, and the flooding in New Zealand, and it made that kind of a real issue for me. And then, and so we go and talk about it. I ask her about her daughter. And, I mean, it's just kind of a fun way to become personally acquainted with these people that I'm interacting with online in a business sense, and networking with, so that when I need something, I know different people in my profession, what their interests and their specialties are, and can find the right person to get the help that I need. And that's something that simply wasn't available to us 10 years ago. So I think that's actually kind of an interesting to think about it too. So becoming part of the conversation, I think a blog includes many benefits, including improving your writing. So not only are you creating a sort of professional profile of yourself, you become part of the historical conversation like we talked about. And daily writing improves your ability to write. You listen to people who talk about the importance of, or how to become a good writer, and they say, you become a good writer by writing. Which makes sense, right? You become a good piano player by playing the piano. You become a good baseball player by playing baseball. And some people expect to be able to be good at writing without practicing the art of writing. And so you write every day. You write on a blog. You hone your ability to take complex pieces of information and describe it or explain it in a simple way, or find connections to other things in the world around you. And so, so blogging is a great way to do that. And like, I think, was it you that someone said that your students didn't have an audience of people to write to, because you sit someone down and say, okay, here's paper, write. What do I want me to write about? And when you're practicing your writing, it probably doesn't really matter. As long as you can do stream of consciousness, whatever you're thinking, I can't think of anything to say, I can't think of anything to say, oh, that was kind of weird what my kid said today, or this is, I was really irritated by my roommate who did the following, and you just start writing, and then other topics come up, and that becomes just a source of practice for you. But in a blog sense, you actually have someone to write to, and so you have something to write about if your blog is on a specific topic. And it gives you focus, and it gives you an audience, and gives you the ability to then learn how to hone in on that important concept that you're trying to portray from a rhetorical standpoint. And then I think, looking at Twitter and Facebook and LinkedIn, recognizing that those are all pieces of your online profile, and how you write and what you do in interacting with those social aspects is part of who you are in the online world. And of course, standard suggestions of what not to do when blogging, recognizing that this is part of the permanent conversation, recognizing that when someone does a Google search, even if you've taken the site down, in many cases it's available through the Internet Archive, or it's available through, Google will keep a cache of it for a while before they delete the cache. So once you've posted it, it's online. And in some ways, in some respects, there's no way of ever taking it back. So you have to be careful. People pay a lot of money these days to fix their online profile. There are companies that specialize in helping overcome bad search engine rankings based on your name because of things you've posted. You can't. In some cases, you could actually go onto a website and request that they remove it from their website. You can get a lawyer involved, and there are things you can do legally. But in a lot of cases, what people are doing is getting other people to write good things about them so that their name gets linked to other kinds of content. You don't want to have to go through that. If you think about it in advance and prepare and recognize what you're doing as you communicate in the social world, you can avoid that altogether. So you want to make sure that if your blog's a professional blog, you stay, on track. Talk about what you really should be talking about. If you have a personal blog, make sure that you're okay with the whole world, including your potential boss, your potential family, reading these things down the road, because in many cases they're going to come back and they're going to see it. On Twitter, you've got to be careful how you respond, because Twitter is an interesting medium because it's such a short, with only 140 characters, you can't say a lot. But so you end up saying things with brevity, but possibly with harshness that you don't intend, because you can't really massage the way that you present information. And so people who know your Twitter handle can go back and look at tweets you've posted. They'll see how you responded to other companies. Potential employers will look and see what you said about the company you were working for, because it matters to them that their image be respected and by their employees. I'm not interested in hiring someone who badmouths a product that, even if they think there's a bunch of problems, how they talk about those problems is interesting to me. And if they do it in a negative way, I'm probably not interested in hiring them. Facebook privacy, that was my comment on the 10,000 to 90,000 people within your reach, recognizing that your friends of friends is a pretty broad group of people. And in many cases, it wouldn't reach a full 10,000 or 90,000, because I have 100 friends and a bunch of those people are friends with each other, right? So that we talk about a potential reach of 10,000 or 90,000, but still, it's a lot broader than you might suspect when you say, I only have 150 friends. And then other social sites have similar issues. Google Plus, for example, recognizing that what you put out there in the public timeline or the public feed becomes part of the public record, really. And once it's out there, it's a lot harder to control. If you can control what you write or what you put out there in the first place, that's where you actually have control over it. Facebook has an interesting new policy you might be aware of, where if someone tags you in a photo, you can set your settings in Facebook to require you to approve that photo before your tag appears. Now, the photo is still up there, but you can actually control whether or not your name gets linked to that photo, where before you didn't have a choice. If someone took a photo of you at some party doing something and they tagged your name in it, you were linked to that photo. And you could go in and remove it, but you had to proactively do that. Where now you can actually tell Facebook, don't post my name on a photo, don't link me to that photo or other content, whether it's a blog, any kind of content in Facebook, until I actually approve it. So it's worth taking a look at those privacy settings in Facebook and really thinking about what are the implications of people posting content about me, because that is also part of my online profile. When someone says something in a Twitter feed or on their blog about me personally, I should be out there looking for, doing Google searches or doing web searches to find out what's being said about me, so I can respond and control that conversation. It's not just businesses that have to worry about their brand. We as individuals now have to worry about our brand, because we don't control everything that's said about us, but we control how we respond to it if we know that it's out there.
I just read something in the paper about people not like if your child goes to a birthday party and the mom at the birthday party puts the name of your child on the picture that she posts at the birthday party, that it's a danger to put the names of children publicly on Facebook, and I've never even thought about that. Yeah,
again, especially considering the reach of what who could be included. It's one thing to post photos of your kids and let your friends see them. It becomes a totally different issue when you allow a wider group of people to see those images. And in some cases, it's kind of a hard line to draw, right? Because I post photos of my family. I want my wife's friends to be able to see the photos of her and our family. But the way to do that has been traditionally, for my friends and friends of my friends, because my wife is my friend on Facebook. But that's a much broader audience than maybe I'm aware of. So looking at the child privacy and those kinds of things are actually becoming more and more important. And data privacy is becoming more and more important as well, in terms of what you can post online about people. And recognizing, this is tangentially related, recognizing that in different countries the laws are different. So, like Dr. Paul said, I work as an intellectual property coordinator for our department at the church. And we have to be really careful. We create something very simple, like a photo directory for the ward. And that works in the United States. But in the European Union, people have to give informed consent before their photo can appear on the website. You can't even post a photo internally at the church for church leaders to use unless they've signed a paper saying, I know that my photo is being taken, this is what it's being taken for, this is how it will be used. So these data privacy laws vary from country to country as well. So recognizing that we are in a worldwide environment is kind of part of that, and the cultural expectations are different from culture to culture. I guess it's not totally related, but what it reminded me when you talk about, pictures of kids and pictures of your family and controlling that information. So my final bit of career advice is to be part of some professional organization like the Society for Technical Communication. Many of you are here today because you're part of the chapter, the Society for Technical Communication chapter at BYU. We have another student chapter at Utah State University, and we have a professional chapter for working professionals that covers all of Utah and parts of southern Idaho, and it's called Intermountain STC. And there's our website. And this is the website for the society level organization. And it's a great opportunity for you to connect with people professionally that are interested in the things that you're doing, that are doing research or doing work in areas that are related to communication, specifically technical communication, but that may involve everything from training to instruction manuals to marketing, copywriting. I mean, there's a wide variety of what might fall into that category, and organizations like that can provide you with structure and help a community of people instantly to work with, so that you can get the help and information that will help you professionally in your career. So that's what I have for you today. Do you guys have questions, comments?
This is going to sound uber paranoid, but now you have made me uber paranoid. So as far as like combining professional and personal, that's never, I'm not like, as far as what I've posted about myself on Facebook, I've never really been concerned about it. My question is like, roommates hate each other. So like if a roommate goes on and says, oh, I hate this person, do employers really care about that? Like,
no, I mean, I don't know that.
Because that I know exists about me. So that's why I was just curious. So
I think they would probably care if you had a pattern.
Yeah,
if everybody
right.
wrote that they hate about you.
Yeah. An individual, it wouldn't be so worrisome. But yeah, I mean, looking at the whole, you ought to do a vanity search on Google and see what comes up. That's actually what they call it, because most people go to a new search engine.
Just Google your name.
Yeah.
All sorts of things.
So you go. Most people go to a new search engine site when they hear about it or whatever. The first thing they type is their own name and do a search and see what pulls up. Yes, I'm guilty, right? And you should be doing that on a regular basis. There's actually, you can set up Google Alerts or other, various websites will actually set up alerts so that when new content is indexed that includes your name, it'll send you an email to let you know that content has been posted, so you can actually actively monitor.
Oh my gosh, I'm totally going to do that now. Okay.
But so in a case like that, I would see where if that comes up in a search result, where in the search results does it come up? If it's in the top 10, you probably need to be putting other stuff out there to try and move that further down.
Okay.
But if if it's on pages 2 or 3 or 4,
Should you respond to it? So that explain the circumstances why this.
If it's in a form where that's appropriate, sure. If someone just posted it as their status on Facebook, I don't know. There's not a lot you can do that's going to proactively fix. To tie it to that specific incident, but still maintain a good reputation. Because if you're posting on your roommate's Facebook wall that hates you, you don't necessarily want to give the roommate fodder for saying more things about you that they dislike, right? In some cases, it's probably okay to just ignore it. If it's on something like a website or a blog or those kinds of things, it's probably easier to respond to it in a way that you can say, hey, I don't agree, and this is why I don't agree, but very, very tactfully. But in some cases, I think,
just push it down.
Just push it down.
Yeah.
Exactly.
That's good advice.
It's like the church with the More Good Foundation, that they've been able to switch. The church didn't officially do it, but they've been able to switch the online profile of the church from negative to positive.
Yeah. So that when you do, they actually are very proactively working on keywords and search engine optimization, so that when you search on key terms like Bible or Jesus Christ or Mormon or church, that it pops up high. There's actually some interesting articles online about how they're doing that. And it includes things like internal linking on the church website, so that you get these keywords, because Google indexes terms based on the link, the text of the link. So you include, if it says church, and you make that the word church a link, and it links to the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, then that website becomes a higher rank for that search term. So the church is actually proactively going out and trying to improve its image on various key search terms that they believe are important and part of their image. And it's something you can do for yourself too, to some degree. It's easier for the church to do it because you have a bunch of, the Quorum of the 12 says go out and talk about your faith online. And so things like that are easier to control. Not control, but they have a wider reach and better response. It'd be kind of hard individually to do that kind of a search engine optimization per se. It's probably better, more good quantity than good quality with quantity.
Let me ask you one question, and then we'll let everyone else ask questions. But a lot of these guys here are just starting their own blog sort of campaigns. And you've been, have you been doing it for more than 10 years? Or 10 years? Because you were doing it already.
I started in 2002 or 2003.
Yeah, I was going to say you were doing it in 2002. So if you were to start right now all over again and to try to create your blog presence, what kind of tips would you give these guys about?
One thing I did that helped me is I knew where I was going. So I knew that I was interested in technical communication. I knew that's what I wanted to do for a career. So I was able to start a technical communication blog very early on. And so if you know the direction, if you know what area you want to brand yourself in, to go and actively put that in your title and write posts specifically about that, include those in the post titles, to get yourself into that niche. And then I would say, and the next critical part is, once you've got good content on your blog, is to go to someone else's blog in your area and leave comments for them. Because your comments then track back to your blog, which gives you some link power from Google itself. But then you also get readers of the other blogs who will say, oh, that's an interesting, intelligent comment. I'm going to click and see what their blog is. Oh, I'm going to add it to my feed reader. So I think the best thing you can do as you're starting a blog is to figure out what your focus is. Stick to that focus, and once you've got good content, go ahead and start commenting, becoming part of the conversation in other places with links back to your blog every time, so that you become more of an authority in that area. I guess I was lucky and it happened to work out pretty well for me. But that's what I would probably do if I were starting over with a new blog. Content really is king. If people come to your site and there's nothing there worth reading, they don't see anything or the design is off-putting, then they walk away with like, whatever, click away. I'm there for 10 seconds, never go back. But if you can find some reason to make them come back, give some stickiness in essence to your page, provide them with something of value, then you increase in your influence and ability to communicate or to become a more important part of the conversation in general.
So I think Andrea and David had questions.
Yeah.
In order to get your name to come up on Google search, besides these social media ways, what else is there? How do you publish or get things online?
I think that I'm lucky in that I have the spelling of my last name is somewhat unique. So there aren't a lot of Paul Pehrson spelled the way I spell it. So if you're stuck with a common name, or you have someone who has a famous person who has your name, it's a lot harder to do that. Do things like, let's see, my next slide. Yeah, do things like having, if you can, get your Facebook page to the URL on your Facebook page to include your name. Include that's not, it's an /Paul Pehrson, sorry. That period there should be a slash. But include your name as you can pick your URL for Facebook, for LinkedIn, you pick your URL for Twitter. Include your name as part of the URL for those pages. Go into Google and set up a Google profile. You can set up a public profile so when people search on your name, at the bottom of the search results, it shows people who have that name who have a Google profile. And you can then link back to all of your other sites that are that are part of your online presence. If you have a web page, or you can get a web domain, publish your blog on your own page rather than publishing it on Blogger or one of the other WordPress.org websites or .com websites. But having your own domain name, and then you can get plugins that help with your search engine optimization. Use your name as you write. Make sure you have a bio about you on your blog. Just do things like that to make sure your name gets out there, and comment on other blogs using your real name. And because your name is what's highlighted, is what the link is back to your blog, and so again that reinforces giving you more. Those are just SEO techniques, I guess, for your individual name, without per se, blogging, or without using Twitter or something. I guess. Does that answer your question to some degree? Do you have a question?
I found that, so this is just taking user expertise. So I find the easiest way to get sort of a flow to the or flow of views on your blog is like through Facebook, through Twitter, stuff like that. I was just wondering what potential you see in Google+. I haven't started that yet, and I was quite late coming on Twitter, but when I once got on there, I really got engaged in the conversation. So it was a very good tool. What kind of potentiality do you see there? Is it worth, if you do go on Facebook and
what I really like about Google+ is it ties to your Google profile. So it's part of your search engine results for Google specifically. I also really like that Google includes what they call circles. And you have circles of influence, and you put your friends or your contacts into circles. And then when you create content, you share it with a circle specifically. So rather than putting it out publicly, like in Facebook, you actually, and Facebook has tried, with their changes in the last couple of days even, tried to imitate that functionality to some degree. But Google Plus does a really good job of letting you just share content with specific circles of people. So, so you put, and people can exist in more than one circle. So, you might have some professional contacts in a circle, and then like friend professional contacts, and they might be in both. But then you can just filter or send pieces of content that you write to specific people. And so I think that Google Plus has a great. I think it might have more relevance to you in terms of seeing the information you want in context of the groups you've created. So you can go and just look at posts from people in a certain group. So that works for both sharing and receiving content. So I think that's one of the great features about Google Plus as a tool itself. More than Facebook, where you do have this option, and it's becoming more so now, but where you had only the option of friends or friends of friends, or my networks, which is like what BYU, which is how many thousands of people that are here and who have been here before. I mean, so it gives you are more in control of where your information goes, which is nice, especially for personal things. But be sure to not exclusively use those if you're trying to build an online brand, because if the search engine can't see you, then you don't get any long-term benefit from it. So you would want some of those professional type things to be posted to the world, to people who aren't even in your circles, so that you can, again, work with that, building your online presence.
Paul, thank you so much. We really appreciate it. If you have questions, you can answer those for a few minutes, and we'll see you guys all later. Amy will send you what we're doing in 2 weeks for our topic and what the reading is.
I will also post it to the Facebook page.
Yeah.
Hey, thanks.
The country is so interesting. It goes to that part. Well, it's really hard. It's like knocking a country off.
That's right.
I know how take that Wales.
It's not hard to do mine.
In your age and stage, that was
it's pretty easy to see.
Oh, see, but mine isn't there.
Yeah.
You're really good online person. Thanks.
Oh, well, thank you.
Go for it. Here's this is for you.
Thank you.
So there's more.
Thank you.
Are you a nurse?
I'm a medical assistant.
A medical assistant. Good. Did you get this? You got this. I have very many from class.
I'm looking.
Good. Oops, I'm sitting here standing in front of this and talking. I'm going to have to...